What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/EntitledParents. Now, in today's first story, an entitled dad doesn't let his own children go to school. Trust me, that's not clickbait. You will see what I'm talking about. It's a weird one. How my father tried to control me as a young girl. Or, can I go to school? F no. So, I made a post the other day about my father trying to force an arranged marriage on me, and well, a few people really enjoyed it, and I thought I would share another story about my father. Yeah guys, I actually covered that one the other day as well. If you want to go and check out that video before you watch this one, then click the I button right now to go and watch it. I am a 29-year-old Vietnamese Canadian immigrant female. I immigrated when I was 13, and I am and will always be the first to admit I come from a very super privileged background. My father is a very entitled person. He believes his word is God. To be honest, it's not actually that abnormal in Vietnamese families, but because of him, I had almost no interaction from anyone my own age until I was nearly 15 years old. He believed because I was his blood, I was above everyone else and should not mix with the common garbage, his words. Because of this, my view of the outside world was the estate we lived on. It was large. My grandparents lived there as well as most of his brothers and sisters, and the estate had several houses on it. But because of this, I never had a chance to make a friend. My father even forbade me leaving the house in the daytime hours because he didn't want me to have dark skin because that would be low class. I was lucky there was a change of scenery when I was 13. My father worked for the family company and a business in Canada that would take years and years. He wanted to leave us here with my grandparents, but my mother fought so hard, very hard, every day to make him bring my sister and I with them. When we arrived, it was pretty much the same. I was not allowed to leave the house, I was not allowed to socialize, and I had a private tutor. My father did not even allow me to study English, and there was definitely no way in heck I would be allowed to go to a Canadian school. I have to mention one thing. My mother was an absolute fireball, completely a bad butt. She learned a lot of English in school and university and never stopped studying it. She wanted me to have at least a chance of freedom, so her, in her female dogginess, started teaching me English in secrets. At this time, I was very shy, but I did make it known I wanted to go to a normal school, but my father was just terrible about it. This went on for about a year. So, it was around the end of the first year I was in Canada, and my uncle got into some legal trouble. That's a story in itself, but the short version is he killed a mother and a child while driving drunk while they were walking, and because of family money, he got out of it. But because of the issue, my father had to travel back to Vietnam and would be gone for half a year. But he didn't want to bring my mother, mostly because he likes prostitutes and it's easier if she was not there. Wow. But at this time, my English was getting very good. I was practicing with my mother for 3 hours a day. So, my mum being my mum, the very day he was gone, she had me enrolled at the local public high school. My sister was only 3 at the time, but she had her taking like a pre-kindergarten class that day as well. Honestly, my first real day of school was terrifying, but one of the happiest days of my life. When my father returned from Vietnam, he blew up screaming and yelling, and all my mother says is, "Oh well, the damage is done now, too bad." See, my father would never hit my mother. She may be very beautiful and ladylike, but she was a farm girl through and through. She would happily buy live chickens and cut their heads off. She actually taught us how to butcher chickens and not be scared of that stuff. But my father knew if he ever hit her, that would be his last day alive. Yeah, not for the first time in one of these stories. I'm just so confused once again as to how this man and woman have ever coupled up and become married. Maybe it was an arranged marriage like the story we saw before. I guess actually, yeah, it probably was. I forgot about that. That probably explains it because they seem so different. I'm just not sure how they would ever be compatible. But yeah, now that I think about it, maybe they weren't. All I can say, OP, is it's a good thing that you have your mother, you know, to contain and you go against your dad in certain situations and ultimately just do stuff behind his back that she probably wouldn't get away with when he was there. But then when he's gone, you know what? Screw it. My kids are going to public school in Canada because why not? That's the right thing to do. She just does what she wants and I love her for it. So yeah, well played to OP and especially your mum. Now for our next story. Entitled mum gets mad at me for playing Mortal Kombat after letting her son play. This happened a few days ago. let's set the scene. I'm 14. I was at the hospital visiting my mum, who is a nurse, in the waiting room, and my brother and I decided to surprise her for our birthday by showing up with flowers and a card. Our dad dropped us off but couldn't come in because he was in a conference call. He's an IT worker. The receptionist told us to wait for a bit as they were in the middle of a surgery. During this time, I pulled out my Nintendo Switch because I was bored and decided to load up some Mortal Kombat 11. My brother, who didn't really want to play, decided to though because he was also bored, and because I also kinda begged him to play. I handed him a Joy-Con and we selected our characters, mine being Sindel, my main, and his being Sub-Zero, his main. We battled it out on the Deadpool stage, which ended up in a 2-1, and I won. My brother handed me the Joy-Con, and as I took it, I heard a tap on my shoulder. Here enters an entitled mum and her kid. The entitled mum was a classic Karen. Blonde hair, 90s clothes, a nasally voice, and eyes that said, "Can I speak to your manager?" She said, "Hello, I was wondering if my son could play that nice game you were playing." The kid looked to be around 10 to 11 years old. I smiled and said okay, but warned him it was a bit graphic. I'm sure it will be fine. Well, okay then. We started off with selecting characters, and he warned me that he was gonna, according to the kid, kick your butt so hard. I smirked and instantly locked Sindel, splitting hairs, while he picked Noob Cybot, seeing double. He asked to review the moves, and I let him because I wanted him to have a fair chance. He did, and we began to fight. I started the round off with a forward 2-1 combo into an amplified scream. He began furiously mashing the buttons. He hit me with a 2-1-2, which did some decent damage, but it ended in a 2-0, with me performing the hair today, gone tomorrow fatality, in which, gore warnings, Sindel does a quick backwards cartwheel, I think, and then uses her hair to grab the arms of her opponents. Then she screams at them so loud, their skin starts to tear off from the face to the waist, and their bottom half falls away, showing their intestines and all of that. She then does a star screamer to blast the remaining bits apart so they fly all over the screen. All of a sudden, I hear the entitled mum's voice yell, "What the F did you show my kids?" My brother and I both jumped, and I turned to her. "Miss, you allowed him to play this, and I even warned you that it was gory. You didn't seem to care." "I don't care. You should have let him win so he can traumatize you with this BS." She tries to grab the Switch from me, and I pull away, leaning into my brother as she swipes at me again, her nails scratching at my hands. "Give me that." My brother turns to her and pushes her away. He's the more confrontational one. "Hey, leave him alone. It's a game that he warned you about, and again, you didn't listen." At this time, my mum walks in and sees the commotion going on. What is going on here? The entitled mum then switches into victim mode and says, "You have to help me. These horrible teenagers tried to show my son a murder game, and they tried to sexually assault me and my son. What the heck?" My mum immediately sees us and is terrified, saying, "Boys, did you do that?" We both, of course, shook our heads. The entitled mum then says, "They're horrible children. They should be arrested." She then turned quickly and gave us a smirk, then switched back into victim mode. My mum then said, "I highly doubt what you're saying is true. For one, we have cameras everywhere, and two, they're my kids." They're your kids?" My mum nods, and the entitled mum starts going on a rant about how bad of a parent she is, and my dad must have left home for a mistress. He hasn't, but my parents are divorced. My mum immediately went into rage mode. "Shut the F up about my kids. You have no right to judge them for the games they play. I got that game for him for his birthday. You also don't have a right to judge me for being a mother. Receptionist, call security and have them escort this woman out." The receptionist nods, and in minutes, 3 burly guards are there. 2 of them get her out of the room, and the 3rd one stays behind to ask what just happened. The entitled mum's kid is following her, asking why they can't stay. We walk outside to see the mum getting handcuffed and put in a cop car, and a police officer asked us if we wanted to press charges. We said yes. She was charged with assault, destruction of property, the Nintendo was a bit scratched, and attempted theft. Our dad at this point has walked over, putting himself on mute so the others in the call couldn't hear him. He asked us what happened, and we gave him our story. He nodded and then apologized before returning to his call by the car. In the end, I decided to post this on Reddit as my first encounter with an entitled parent. I hope you enjoyed. I will update more in case we have to go to court or something. Yeah, not gonna lie guys, sometimes with these stories, I always do question when people actually press charges, because I always think, well, it seems a little bit petty to press charges. It just happened, it's not the biggest of deals. And I was thinking the same in this story until I had a little bit more of a think about it, because in this situation, say the nurse that came over wasn't OP's mum, and the entitled mum was actually saying, yes, they sexually assaulted me and my kid, and say for example, they didn't have video evidence or CCTV, that could have been the severity of that cannot be understated, you know. That could have been so serious for that family and those two kids, because you never know, a judge might have sided with the woman and her kid over the two brothers. You never know what could have happened. So in that situation, yeah, I totally understand why OP and your family were keen to press charges, because think of what could have happened. It could have been terrible. Now for our final story, psycho entitled Uber female dog crashes our movie night, gets owned. This happened many years ago, but I remember most of it because it was just so freaking stupid, and I briefly wrote about it in my journal. I'm female, and at the time I was in my late 30s, as were the rest of the group. I used to have a friend, she moved so we lost touch, who had an Uber female dog of a younger sister, along with her rotten little 8-year-old female crotch goblin. I mean, this kid was such a butthole, and her trashhead mother enabled and indulged her. This kid would always take other people's stuff and either mess with it, break/eat it, or steal it, and would throw a fit if you stopped her, causing mummy to get in your face. Of course, the Uber female dog, we'll call her UB, never offered to replace anything. One night, a bunch of us, all women this night, went to my friend's house for a horror movie marathon night. We did movie night 2 to 3 times a month, always with a different theme, and friends and spouses were welcome, and each of us was expected to bring a snack, drinks, alcohol was optional, and 1 or more movies, usually R-rated. We'd then pick, via mutual agreement, the 3 or 4 we liked best to watch. Suffice to say, young kids were not allowed. We were well into our first movie and 2 bottles of wine when my friend's front door opens and her UB walks in, unannounced, says she is going clubbing and tries to dump the kid on us because we were staying home anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. My friend is fuming and refused to watch the kid because, she later told us, A, she's a spoiled, destructive brat. B, my UB sister didn't call or ask despite multiple warnings. C, this was her time to unwind with friends, not babysit her sister's rotten crotch fruit. D, none of the movies were remotely child-friendly and she wasn't going to alter her plans just because her sister wanted to go clubbing. And E, did I mention the kid was a spoiled, destructive brat? She didn't say any of this at the time, just gave a flat no, to which both her Uber female dog entitled sister and the kid threw a tantrum. It turned out she told her daughter she would be having a fun movie night with auntie. As they argued, the kid took the opportunity to grab the remote and started playing the DVD we'd paused when they let themselves in. It was the 1988 remake of The Blob and was mine, and she started watching. None of us stopped her because honestly, we were too busy watching the sisters fight to notice. Ironically, we had paused it just before a particularly scary/gross scene, where a little boy gets grabbed, pulled under the water, then comes up half melted and screaming before being dragged back under and devoured. Naturally, the brat freaks out and starts crying, which alerts this entitled sister, who starts screaming at us for letting her kid watch. I'm paraphrasing here because this was a while ago and I didn't write her words. Our disgusting movies. Pretty sure she also dropped a couple of F-bombs too, then demanded to know who it belonged to. Since I hated UB, the entitled sister, I got up off the couch, but surprisingly so did another friend, who I'll call friend 1, a very buff, sporty girl who the entitled sister hated and actively feared. This was because they'd gotten into a fist fight the year prior, when UB groped my friend's fiance at a party, and no, she wasn't drunk. then slapped my friend, who promptly beat her in front of everyone. My friend glared at her, then said, "It doesn't matter whose movie it is. What matters is you coming in here uninvited, giving your sister rubbish, not watching your freaking kid, then getting annoyed when your kid again touches stuff that isn't hers and ends up scaring herself. Now, I suggest you get your kid, turn around, and go freaking home." A smart person would have done what my friend said, but UB was never particularly smart. Instead of leaving, she turns to me and starts getting in my face, probably figuring I wasn't going to retaliate because she was smaller than me. She's my height, but much slimmer. She was right, but also wrong. I have a temper, always have, but my temper will first manifest as sarcasm, right up until I either reach my BS saturation point or the idiot picking the fight touches me, then it's game on. And by that point, I do not give a dang if you're smaller or bigger. So she got in my face, screaming a mismatch of oral flatulence I didn't really listen to nor care about, except a sentence or two. We needed to take care for her kid. What the heck? When she stopped to take a breath, I said, "Why is it our job to watch your kid? It's not like any of us pushed her out of our blank." The entitled sister actually gasped like someone in a graphic novel and yelled in my face, "You have a son!" "Yes, I do," I replied, starting to get really mad now. "But do you see him here? No, that's because I'm not a self-centered female dog who will bring him to an adults-only gathering or dump him on others without asking." This really set her off, and like any entitled moron who can't fight, she tried to slap me. Luckily, she fights like a girl. Too bad for her, I don't. When UB, the entitled sister, pulled her arm back, people never telegraph your blows, I moved slightly to the side, grabbed her arm, rotated it behind her back, grabbed her hair, then planted her face hard in the nearest wall, pinning her arm behind her back. Dang, it felt good. She struggled and cursed, but I was not letting go. I told her she had three choices. She could take her kid and leave, quietly. I could kick her butt in front of her kid. I'd never actually do that, but she didn't know that, and by this point, one of the others had taken the kid into the kitchen, but I was too busy to notice. Or I could call the cops, have her arrested for assault, then call the kid's ex, who hated this woman because she cheated, to come and pick the kid up. She agreed to option 1, but then tried to get my friend to side with her once I released her, because family. My friend though responded by taking her sister's keys, removing her house key, and telling her that neither she or her kid were welcome in her house and to please GTFO. The look on her sister's face was one of utter shock, as if she'd discovered someone peeing in her cereal bowl. She then looked at all of us for support. Why she looked at me for help, I just don't get. But we just, of course, glared at her. Realizing nobody would side with her, she grabbed her kid, called us all blanks, especially me, and left, slamming the door. My friend apologized to us. No need, we all knew her sister was a butthole, then immediately called her parents, giving them the lowdown and warning them that unless they wanted to end up watching the brat all weekend, they better get in their car and go anywhere else. Her sister had done this before many times, and to warn the other relatives as well. This entitled sister didn't get to go clubbing, and soon after actually lost custody of the brat to her ex. I don't know what happened to her since, and I don't care. Oh, well, it is great to see one of these stories with a very, very positive outcome at the end. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but you just got what you deserved. If you're bringing your kid over unannounced to have your sister babysit, that is just very poor form. Even though your sister is, of course, family, you don't know what she's up to. She's having a movie night, watching horror movies. Probably not the best place for your kid. And yeah, it's a good thing that your ex has got custody now, because clearly you don't deserve it. I mean, this one is definitely one of the more satisfying entitled parent stories that I've read recently. Everything that went on was just like, oh, seriously? But then, at the end, perfect conclusion. OP, gotta say, well done to standing up to this witch, because honestly, lesser people would probably have backed down and said, yeah, fine, your baby can stay, oh, we'll have to ruin our night because of this entitled person. But yeah, good on you for standing up to this person, and ultimately, justice was served. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/EntitledParents. If you want more right away, you can check out this playlist of all my Entitled Parents videos. If you want to subscribe to my channel as well, that would be greatly appreciated. Clicking this button over here. We're trying to hit 600,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so any help will be muchly appreciated. And finally, for you cool viewers, if you want to buy some merch, pick some up right here. I'm wearing some right now. It's very comfortable stuff, and there's a lot of different colours and designs in there, so go and check it out.